Bismillah, welcome back, Zoo Crew. So, we are approaching the end of our 90-day journey of restarting my life at 33, and it's proven to be quite the experience. There's been a lot of ups, there's been a lot of downs, and really there's been a lot of growth, and I wouldn't have it any other way. However, I'm realizing as much as I've grown, I still have a lot more to grow, you know? And I guess this is the whole thing, even when we're talking about goals and habits and stuff, when you're trying to build a habit, it's a very difficult thing to do because you're literally becoming a new person, right? And I guess this is the same thing with goals. It's like you set this goal to, let's say, go to the gym or work out and eat clean or read 10 pages or any of these other things, right? And I think we get all caught up in the notion of oh, well, I need to build these habits and then I'll become this person. And doing that's a very hard thing to do, right? So if you set goals and you find you're not achieving the goals, it's better to just stop setting goals, right? It's better to just kind of go inward and then be decide who you need to become and then become that person, right? And as much as people say oh, it takes time to change and it's hard to change, as much as that's true, it's also not true, because there's examples even in my life of people who, let's say, were smoking for 40 years, 50 years, and then they got lung cancer and now they have to quit smoking. And they literally just flip a switch and boom, they quit smoking, right? So I think it's a lot about just being the person you want to be, right? Instead of it's this whole, there's a quote from Star Wars where it's there's no try, it's either do or don't, some shit like that. And I seen this Tony Robbins clip where he's explaining this concept to a lady and he's try and pick up the chair, and she's not able to pick up the chair, so he's it's either you do it or you don't, right? There's no in between. And I think this is the key thing for life. It's that we say oh, we're trying to be a better person, or we're trying to make a relationship work, or we're trying to eat clean, and it's that whole notion of oh, we're trying allows us to be complacent, right? We can convince ourselves that oh, I'm trying, so that should be enough, and it's well, it's not enough, right? And in a lot of cases it's we use that as an excuse not to change, right? Even myself, I know that when I'm feeling abandoned or rejected or ignored, I will go out of my way and say a bunch of shit I don't mean just to get some kind of reaction so I can feel some kind of connection to a person, you know what I mean? And I know it's a destructive habit and I know I shouldn't do that because it's very self-sabotaging. But in my head, I'm telling myself, oh, I'm trying to become a better person. But then when push comes to shove, I'll revert back to my old ways, right? So I'm realizing now, it's not okay. I can't just be doing that. And I have to become more self-aware and then catch myself in those moments. So I think this is really why I've been contemplating just getting rid of my phone and having just a flip phone, so I can't get caught into these cycles where I'm texting shit I shouldn't be texting. And then if I really want to talk to somebody, I have to call them. And then even then, making sure if I'm calling somebody, it's just logistical to set up a time to meet and talk in person. Because 90%, 80% of communication, it's nonverbal, right? So it's facial expressions, it's body language, it's tone. And a lot of these things don't get conveyed over text or even over the phone, right? And you could be feeling some type of way about somebody saying XYZ thing, but if they're not in front of you, you won't be able to look at their face and see what they're actually saying, right? You won't be able to read between the lines. So the point being don't try and change, just change. Don't try and be better, just be better, you know? And I get it. It's it's easy for me to say this, and it's very hard to implement or put into practice, you know? But again, you have to understand that humans are flawed creatures, right? We're flawed by design. We're given free choice, free will. and like it's both a good thing and a bad thing, right? So you have the freedom to go and hurt people. You have the freedom to make decisions that will negatively impact your life or other people's lives, right? And I guess really the whole point is like you have to like respect yourself, but then you also have to be like considerate towards other people, right? You have to take into account how your actions or like the things you say are going to impact somebody else, right? Because a lot of times like we'll say and do things and like our intention is good or like we mean well, but it lands poorly on the other person's end, right? And life, like humans are social creatures, so like you can't just avoid people forever. And like even myself, like I've said so many times like, oh, I want nothing to do with my family, but like at the same time that's my family, so it's like I can't even just like pretend like these people don't exist. And like if I'm getting so triggered by them that like the only thing I can do is avoid them, it means that I still have a lot more internal work to do, right? And it's the same thing in relationships. Like if somebody's doing something that's triggering you, like you should voice it first of all and like let the person know like, hey, like this XYZ pattern or behavior is hurting me. But like don't expect them to change, because like you know for yourself how hard it is for you to change as a person. So like it's not fair for you to expect somebody else to change for you, right? The only time people will change is when they truly want to change. So life is hard and people are very complicated, and understanding people is like very complicated as well. And I guess like I'm still saying like so much. Really, I guess the whole point is you got to just accept people for who they are, like, and you got to understand that humans are flawed, right? People are gonna make mistakes. That's a part of life. And the people who think they don't ever make mistakes, like, oh my God, I said it again. The people who don't make mistakes, or the people who think they don't make mistakes, will never grow and they'll never change, because they've created this like false reality where they're never wrong. And when you try and explain to them what they did that's wrong, they become the victim, right? And then there's so many people, especially now, that are just perpetual victims, and they're angry with the government, they're angry with immigrants, they're angry with like everybody, right? And most of the time these people will go and create problems, or they'll do something that creates a problem and then be upset about the problem, you know? And you can never be happy if that's how you live. And unfortunately, most people are not happy. So if you're not happy with yourself and you end up being in a relationship, you're not going to be happy in that relationship, right? And this ties into this whole notion of like, if you don't love yourself and like you meet somebody who loves you for who you are, flaws and all, it's a very hard thing to accept, because you either are like presenting this image or you're playing a character, and this person is falling in love with that character or like image that you're presenting. And if they're able to see past that image and like see you for who you are, and they still choose to love you, that creates this whole internal conflict, because now you're like, well, why, how is it that this person can actually love me? Because internally they don't believe they're worthy of love, right? So then they'll self-sabotage, they'll have avoidance, they'll run away. And it all ties into this whole like fear of being seen, right? Because when you're a flawed person, and all people are flawed, it's very hard to accept that you have these flaws, first of all. But then it's also very hard to accept that somebody can still want to be with you when you have these flaws, right? And like I think this is what creates the whole internal like dilemma of like, why does this person still choose to be with me knowing like all of these bad things about me? And why are they willing to like keep putting themselves through this, right? And I think that's really what it means to like love somebody unconditionally. And it's a very hard thing to do on both ends, to love somebody like that and then to like be on the receiving end of love like that. And I guess I could speak about this freely or like openly because I've been on both sides, right? Like I've been the avoidant in the relationship where like I took this person for granted and I would just abuse the shit out of her because I thought like, oh, like I can do whatever I want. I can treat her like shit and like she'll always come back. And that was the case. Like she would always come back. and I just took it for granted, right? And then on the flip side, I've been the anxious attached person who was the one constantly chasing and like constantly like trying to repair things and like wanting to make things work, even though the other person didn't want to make them work, you know? And I guess it's not even fair to say that the other person didn't want to make them work. It's just, again, like everyone is flawed, right? And until people have done their own internal work and they've like processed their own kind of trauma, you end up caught in these loops and the cycles, you know? And this whole like avoidant, anxious bond is literally one big cycle. And like the fucked up part about this is both people have the same fear, but it just triggers different reactions, right? So like an avoidant person, when they feel like when they're in a relationship and like things become too real, it feels like they're losing their sense of freedom. They feel like they're losing their control or any of these different things, right? It's like, oh, I need space and I like need to create distance. So like they're trying to run away from it. And then that in turn causes the anxious person to now be like, oh, I'm being abandoned, I'm being rejected, which is literally the same thing the other person is feeling, but their reaction is, oh, let me like chase, I have to like pursue because I need to like talk to this person, right? So when things fall apart, you can't just blame one person. You can't just be like, oh, this is like the avoidant person's fault, because like being an anxious person also has like issues, like you're overwhelming people, you are like, it's just overwhelming, and like you're over explaining, you're over giving, you're overly empathetic, right? So, and like the fucked up crazy part about this is generally the thing that draws these two people together, like the anxious and the avoidant, it's the same thing that ends up pushing them apart, right? So until you're like aware of what's going on, you're never able to break the cycle. And then you just keep getting stuck in this cycle, and like the same thing keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And then you just end up hurting each other, you know? And like the way I kind of see it now is it's like you have a cat and you want the cat to bark. And then you have a dog and you want the dog to meow. You cannot have a cat bark and you cannot have a dog meow. It just doesn't work. You know what I mean? And I don't know if people will understand that analogy or not, or like metaphor, but essentially what I'm saying is you have to accept people for who they are. And the only thing you could do is try and understand them better, right? If you're not willing to understand the other person you're like talking to, whether that's like your friend, that's your girlfriend, that's your wife, that's your parents, if you're not willing to understand, nothing will change. You will get caught in this cycle. You'll keep repeating it over and over again with other people in your life, right? And it's not even just relationships. Like you'll repeat this cycle in your friends. You'll repeat this cycle at work. You'll repeat this cycle everywhere you go because you haven't learned the lesson that it's trying to teach you, right? And this whole notion of like setting goals and like building habits, trying to become a better person, it's not even about like the destination, right? Like we'll set a goal of, oh, I want to get in shape. And it's like, you don't really care about the destination of becoming in shape. You care more about becoming the person that's required to get to that destination, right? That's why they say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And what that means is it's about becoming the person who will get you to that destination, right? Because everyone at the end of the day wants to be a better person. Well, not everyone, I guess, but let's say like 80% of people want to be a better person. 80% of people want to grow in life. 80% of people want to reach their full potential, whatever that is, right? And we get so bogged down in this like whole notion of, oh, well, like I slipped up or I fucked up and like I must not be a good person or I must be a bad person or I'm not able to do this. And it's like, look, life is going to be up and down because it's like a heartbeat. If it's just flatline, you are dead. You need ups and you need downs. It's like, and it ties into resilience, right? What we talked about before. It's how do you deal with those setbacks, right? How long does it take you to get back up? Do you get back up? And when things are falling apart, do you try and put them back together? Or do you just walk away and just give up, right? And it's so easy to just give up. And this is why people just choose to give up, right? It's very hard to accept like, hey, look, I was wrong. Hey, look, I made this mistake. I want to try. I want to be a better person. And like putting in the effort, you know, it's so damn easy to just like call it quits and just walk away. And then I guess really outside of this, like when you're talking to people and they're reaffirming to you that like you didn't make a mistake or you were right or protect yourself, it's because of that that you won't be able to grow, right? Because nobody will know the full story of your life except for you. So now if I tell somebody like, oh, this person did XYZ thing, but then I don't tell them what I did to that person, they will automatically assume that the person I'm talking about is the villain, is the bad person, right? Because there's always two sides to the story. Really, there's three sides to the story, right? Three-sided coin. We talked about this. And so like you get stuck in this like vacuum where people are just like reaffirming to you that, yeah, you're right, yeah, like fuck that person, like just move on with your life. And this is like the difference, I think, between our generation and like our grandparents' generation, right? Let's say I have a jacket and now the button falls off. Most people would just be like, oh, like I need to get a new jacket, etc. Like instead of trying to repair it, right? Somebody's toy breaks and now it's like, oh, well, my toy is broken. Like I need to go get a new toy to replace it instead of trying to fix it, right? We don't value the things we have anymore because we live in this world where we're presented with all of these options. So we think we have more options than we really do, you know? And it's just an illusion of choice. We don't really have that many options. We don't really have that much choice. And everyone is more or less the same, right? It's literally like the same person, just a different costume, you know? So you can leave this friendship, you can leave this relationship or job, but really at the end of the day, like you're going to end up in the same position because most people are literally the same, right? Like there's a few archetypes for people. Like you have lions, you have sheep, and you have snakes. And most people fall into one of these categories, right? The lions will always be lions. Sometimes they'll become sheep. You have the snakes who pretend to be lions and then pretend to be sheep. And then you have the sheep who are just always sheep. And sometimes they become lions, right? So most people fall into one of these categories. So it doesn't matter where you are in life and who you're dealing with. The same things will always repeat. And you just have to like put up with it. You have to just decide like, hey, is this person somebody I want in my life or not? You know, do they bring more good? Do they add more value to my life than like harm? And it's very, very easy to focus on all the negative, especially when your emotions are riled up and especially when like things are not easy, right? When things are easy, it's very, very easy to just, well, that's what I'm saying. When things are going good, it's very easy to just be like, yeah, everything's perfect, you know? It's in those moments when things aren't easy, that's when you're really like tested. That's when like what you're made of shows, right? Because it's very hard to now pause and be like, okay, what's going on? And like look at it from the outside, right? To become like an unbiased third party in your own life. That's a very hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing to have two opposing thoughts in your mind at the same time, right? And like we've discussed this before, it's like brain elasticity because two things can be true at the same time. And it's how well can we hold these two thoughts and then come to an unbiased conclusion or decision, right? And then how do we act on that? And how do we move forward from that, right? Because again, it's very easy to just kind of be like, oh, this is a problem, this person is a problem, and just give up and like give up on that person, you know? And myself included, like when push comes to shove, like it's, and like this ties into the whole notion of like choice theory. So that's a book that I think people should read or listen to. And essentially like our brain will scan for memories of what's like the way to deal with this. And in most times, like we'll just become depressed. Like we're gonna just depress and feel down and sad because that's like the easiest option. And it prevents us from like having anger because we know anger is a destructive thing, right? And then you don't need to like get bogged down in whatever conflict you're dealing with. You have to decide or choose, okay, what do I do from here? Where do I go next, right? How do I come out on the other side of this? What's going to benefit my life the most, right? And then do that, you know? I really didn't know what I was going to talk about today because it's been a weird day. Honestly, it's been a weird few days for me. Since like last Friday, it's just been fucking weird. Maybe even like Thursday. And I guess the part of that is just like I've had like shit going on in my life and then I just didn't voice it. I just let it be inside and I let it build up and fester and turn into resentment until the point where it piled up so much that it just blew up and like everything came out, you know? And again, like I know this is an issue that I have and it's something that I have to work on. Like I have to learn how to communicate better. I have to learn to like voice things when they bother me and not just kind of delay until it like turns into some next thing where like I'm saying a bunch of shit that I don't mean just to get like a reaction out of somebody because I want like some form of connection, you know? So I guess what I'm learning now is that as much as I've like grown as a person, I still have a lot more growing to do. But alhamdulillah, at least I'm like self-aware, you know? Because there's a lot of people who have destructive habits and destructive patterns and like cause harm to people, but they just lack the self-awareness. Or it's just that like they don't want to accept the role they played in these dynamics, right? Because a relationship is two people, so it's not fair to just put the whole blame on one person. It's literally two people. So as much as like you can say, oh, it's all this person's fault, you should also be able to pause and be like, okay, well, what did I do that caused this person that much pain or caused this person to react in this way, right? What did I do that upset this person? What did I do that hurt this person? And this becomes like consideration, because consideration is the highest form of love, right? Being able to consider another person's needs above your own, that is the highest level of love. And it's a very hard thing to do, especially with the whole way the world is. And really, I blame social media for a lot of this, right? Because social media, algorithms, AI, all of these things are designed in a way to show you things that will confirm your own bias or your own belief, right? And now if you're doom scrolling and like your Instagram or your Facebook, whatever, is just constantly showing you reels or like data about like, oh, women are like this, men are like this, you should be in a relationship like this, avoidant people are like this, narcissistic people are like this. It's gonna reprogram your brain or reframe your mind that you're constantly looking for these things, right? And like that's the dark side of the algorithm. Like you could say even like the bright side of an algorithm is if you only consume like business content, all you're going to see is business content, and then you're going to be able to see opportunity everywhere in the world, right? So you have to be very, very careful with technology because it's designed to create conflict. It's designed to create division amongst people. It's designed to keep you depressed and sad and like comparing your life to other people's lives, which is fucked up because most of the shit you see online, it's not even real. It's all fake bullshit, right? And I know this because I saw behind the curtain. I played the fucking game, right? Like I went on a press run. I paid to get put in entrepreneur.com, USA Today. I paid to do a giveaway to like inflate my fucking Instagram following. I paid to be in engagement groups to boost my engagement, right? And all of the people who are like huge online, like Instagram famous, they're all doing this shit, right? And even outside of that, like your own friends, people only post the highlights, right? People are not posting the fucking lows. People are not posting all like the fucked up shit that goes on in their life. That's why when I started posting clips about like all of the crazy shit that's going on in my life or was going on in my life, people were resonating with it because they're like, oh shit, this is like authentic. This is true. This is some dude with like a huge following who's literally going through the same shit as us. Or like, this is just some guy who literally went through the same thing as me. And like, now I feel okay about my story, right? So, and I think now where we're going in the direction of like social media, first of all, I think more and more people are going to be unplugging. More and more people are going to be deleting social media altogether just because they're realizing it's a very toxic environment. And the people who benefit from social media are the people creating content, not the people consuming content, right? And if you are consuming content, you have to be very mindful of what you're consuming because you'll get stuck in this vacuum where it's literally showing you things that reaffirm bad beliefs in your mind, maybe good beliefs, but even then, like you have to question everything. You have to look at both sides, right? So, and this is why like now we're seeing like this website, what the fuck is it called? Where you can see now when something happens in the news, it'll show you what's being said on the left. It'll show you what's being said on the right. The same story, right? But like worded differently or focusing on different points, and then it'll show you what's being said in the middle, right? So technology wants to keep you on one end of the spectrum, either all the way on the left or all the way on the right. They don't want you in the middle, because when you're in the middle and you're thinking critically and you're asking questions, you start to see the flaws in the whole system, right? And then you see that, oh, this is designed this way to keep people separated. It's designed to create conflict. It's designed to keep people's emotions amped up, right? And they just tell you what they want you to know. They don't tell you the reality of what's going on, right? And it's to perpetuate this whole notion of like the system, and then implanting fear in people, and then using that fear to control the people, right? At the end of the day, it all comes down to control. Whether you're like, yeah, literally it all comes down to control. Government's trying to control you, society's trying to control you, parents are trying to control you, relationships like trying to control you. And it's just like our default setting. People feel powerful or they feel safe when they're in control. Giving up control is a very hard thing to do. And I think this is why like Islam is, and like religion and like meditation and these kind of like spiritual things are becoming trendy, because the whole notion behind religion is like detachment, right? Letting go of control, understanding that whatever's going to happen is going to happen and it's out of your hands. The only thing that's in your hand is like your effort. So you do your best and you leave the rest in God's hands, right? There's no point to worry and like fear what could go wrong, because at the flip side, you could just worry, well, what goes right? What could go right? What, right? And it's what you focus on. So if you focus only on the negative and you focus only on things that can go bad, guess what? Your life is going to reframe to be negative. It's going to go out of its way to create more problems, right? And then if you're always looking on the bright side, your life is going to reframe to always be positive, right? And this is where more opportunities will come from. And it's like this whole like notion of like you can give somebody a rose, and then you'll have one person who's like going to complain about the thorns. They're going to be like, oh, why did this flower have thorns? And then on the flip side, you have a person who's going to get the rose and be like, oh, isn't this so beautiful? Like this stem with like thorns on it has such a lovely flower rosebud on the top of it, right? Because they appreciate the beauty in life, versus the people who focus on the negative in life, right? And even like 48 laws of power, there's a law where it says avoid the unlucky and the unhappy, because there's certain people who are just perpetually miserable, right? They enjoy being miserable. They enjoy being unhappy, and they're just unlucky people. It's called infection, right? They're going to infect your life with misery and being unhappy, because if they're perpetually unhappy and miserable, if they're now associating with somebody who is just always optimistic and like joyful and cheerful and just trying to have a good time, making the most out of a bad situation, it's going to bother them, because they want to live like that, but they don't know how to. So they're going to go out of their way to now create problems in your life, or like infect you with their misery to bring you back down to their level, right? And again, like we've talked about this, it's very hard to like rise to a different level, but it's very easy to fall to a lower level, right? It's like when you're climbing up the stairs or you're climbing up a ladder, you're going against gravity. But now if you just let go, gravity is going to pull you back down. So it's very minimal effort required to come down, right? This is why it's very important to audit who you hang out with. Who do you spend time with? Who has access to you? Who has access to your life? Who do you talk to? Who do you take advice from, right? And we'll end it on this whole notion of like who you take advice from. Don't take advice from somebody who hasn't done what you want to do. Don't take advice from somebody who isn't where you want to be, right? You want to be successful entrepreneur, own your own business. Only take advice from successful entrepreneurs. Don't take advice from somebody who works a 9-to-5 job. If you want to be in like a happy, loving marriage, only take advice from people who are in a happy, loving marriage. Don't take advice from your divorced friends. Don't take advice from your single friends or people who are like in relationships, right? And like you can apply this metaphor to everything in life. And the thing is, we overcomplicate things so much, because it makes it okay for us not to take action, right? So I think As humans, we know we're flawed creatures, and we're designed to seek out comfort, right? We're not designed to be uncomfortable. We're not like, we go into survival mode when our bodies feel uncomfortable, right? And this is why things like fasting like work so well, or like even, yeah, like because your body gets shocked, right? And then it tries to like hold on to the fat, but then eventually what happens? You adjust, right? And I guess we can end on, I know we said we could end on this notion, but like this is why diets don't work, because we overcomplicate things so much. And look, like if you want to indulge, right? So instead of drinking Diet Coke, drink real Coke. Don't drink Coke all the time though. Get to a point where you're generally just drinking water, right? Where you're eating clean, healthy, nutritious food. And then on the day when you do have a craving, just indulge in the fucking craving. Have the Coke, have the burger, have the KFC, because then you'll get the craving out and it'll be satisfied. If you just try and like, let's say you want a cookie, but now you're eating like a protein cookie, you're not going to enjoy the cookie. The craving's not going to go, and you're still going to have this thought in your head of like, oh, I need to indulge. It's better just fucking indulge, get it out of your system, and then go back to being healthy, because you'll get the satisfaction from like having the real Coke or having a real cookie or like cake or whatever. And then like your body will start to process it, and you'll be like, oh, I didn't really enjoy that, or like it wasn't really beneficial for me to like have drank this Coke. Let me just stick to being like healthy, right? And then it becomes easier to be healthy. So this whole notion of like dieting doesn't work. You have to just replace all the garbage you eat with like natural whole foods, and be very cognizant of what you're eating. And then when you do need to like indulge in something because you have a sweet tooth, or you like candy, or you like chips, just fucking indulge in it for that one moment, and then go back with your life. And you'll find the more you do this, the easier it becomes to let go of the things that aren't productive in your life. Or like in this whole notion of a diet, you'll find it's easier to let go of all the junk food, right? Because like you could look at me as an example. Like I fucking love chips and sour candy. I could literally eat a family-sized bag of chips in one sitting, no problem, right? But it got to the point where like I was doing that every single day, and then I would feel groggy, or I would feel tired, or like my face would get like oily, and then I could notice like, oh, I'm getting a pimple now. And I rarely ever get pimples, right? Even like when I was going through puberty, that was not like a very common thing for me to have. So I would, but like, so I just cut it out. I was like, hey, no, let me just eat clean. Let me eat healthy. And then like the more and more I did that, like the craving for the chips just disappeared. Every now and again, like, okay, I'll get the craving, and then I'll just indulge. And then like, I'll notice, okay, now I don't have a craving. So like maybe if I was getting the craving every other day, it turns into like every other week. And then that turns into every other month. Then it turns into like, oh, for a whole year, I didn't drink Coke. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess what was the whole point of today? The whole point of today was humans are flawed beings. People are going to make mistakes. You are going to make mistakes. And it's what you do after you make the mistake. Do you own up to it? Do you take accountability? Do you reflect? Do you apologize? Do you change your behavior? If the answer is no, well, then you know what your homework is. If the answer is yes, then give yourself a pat on the back and a job well done. You know, we need more people like you in this world. Anyways, Zoo Crew, that's it for tonight. It's a cold one outside, and this time next week I will be in Japan with the boys. So yeah, go out. Well, I guess don't go out because it's freezing outside. Stay home, get some rest, recover, plan your week out. Start Monday on a good note. That's my wish for you all. Have a great week. Peace out.